Hello, I'm Richard Gisbert, and you're at The Listening Post. This week,
it's a critical night for both candidates.
The U.S. presidential and vice presidential debates. Must-see television or an exercise in pointless talking points.
Everyday American people, Joe Sixpack, hockey moms across the nation.
Google, the internet giant, and its impact on the news media. The soldier rapping on the state of the Russian military. Go east, young man. And what day one of a Bush-Palin presidency might look like.
Hello, John.
Sarah, what did I tell you about bringing those things in here?
I said tanks, but no thanks.
Welcome back. With less than a month to go before Election Day in the United States, the campaign has reached a critical phase, with a series of televised debates attracting huge numbers of viewers in the U.S. and around the world. But are the encounters, McCain versus Obama and Palin versus Biden, in any way helpful to voters who want to get to know the candidates and their policies? Or have they become so carefully controlled and meticulously rehearsed that they are nothing more than a barrage of talking points writ large across the television screens of Americans? That's our starting point this week. The candidates, the ratings-hungry media, and the intersection of politics and commerce that is the presidential debate.
I welcome you to the first of the 2008 presidential debates.
In the political sphere, much is promised and less is delivered. The debates are a case in point.
The debates are supposed to provide the American public a way of comparing and evaluating the candidates. At least that's the theory behind the debates.
It's a critical night for both candidates.
We're not serving the people by holding debates that are controlled.
Each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond.
If we're going to just allow the candidates to speak from a script.
Thank you very much. I'm going to stick by my part of the pack and not ask a follow-up here.
I'd like them to actually be debating each other where they actually fire off questions to each other.
Senator Obama, it's good to be with you at a town hall meeting.
Most of the debates are really about image and the candidates looking presidential or vice presidential and avoiding any major gaffes or mistakes.
This is about a will they or won't they gaffe kind of night.
The ultimate example of that came when Sarah Palin, the Republican vice presidential nominee, politely listened to the moderator's questions.
Would you like to have an opportunity to answer that before?
Then ignored them.
And I may not answer the questions the way that either the moderator or you want to hear, but
and talked about what she wanted to talk about.
But I'm going to talk straight to the American people and let them know my track record also.
The debate format was such that Palin was never once really pushed to show what she didn't know. She was just allowed to make little speeches about things that she could talk about.
Everyday American people, Joe Sixpack, hockey moms across the nation.
There was a series of talking points that she was in a position to repeat.
And I've joined this team that is a team of mavericks with John McCain.
The PR spin that Palin and McCain are giving is that she wants to bypass the media filter. But of course, in a live publicized debate, there isn't much of a media filter. The media, the questioner, is actually serving a purpose for the audience of keeping the candidates on issue and addressing important issues rather than ducking them.
Governor, Senator, neither of you really answered that last question about what you would do as vice president. I'm going to come back to that.
But if you'd put Sarah Palin in a situation where someone could have pushed her, you'd have something more like the Katie Couric interview or the Charles Gibson interview.
Do you agree with the Bush doctrine?
In what respect, Charlie?
Those interviews, the ones Palin did with ABC News and CBS News, acted as Exhibit A and B for anyone making the case that no matter how many viewers the debates draw, no matter how many funky graphics the networks concoct, debates are no substitute for a good probing interview by a journalist willing to not just ask tough questions, but to follow up on them.
The interviews are really useful.
You've cited Alaska's proximity to Russia as part of your foreign policy experience. What did you mean by that?
You could see with the Katie Couric interview on CBS that once Sarah Palin gets past her initial talking point.
Alaska has a very narrow maritime border between a foreign country, Russia.
She couldn't respond to anything. If it wasn't on the 3x5 cards, she's kind of lost.
Well, explain to me why that enhances your foreign policy credentials.
Well, it certainly does, because our next door neighbors are foreign countries.
Follow-up questions really I think demonstrated that she didn't really know much.
Have you ever been involved with?
She could not control the questions. This is where the media is doing its job. It needs to ask the questions in order to get the details to the American people.
The shortcomings of the debates are no accident. They are there by design. The debates are governed by the Commission on Presidential Debates, which calls itself a non-partisan body. That's not quite true. It is a bipartisan body headed by Democratic and Republican Party elders who set the rules that the moderator, usually a high-profile journalist, must then follow.
Like the campaigns themselves, the debates are primarily media events staged by the two parties who own the debate commission and keep out any independent or third parties. So we really don't have any spectrum to these debates.
The campaigns are requiring the media to prepare debates in a certain way. And that is just completely unfair to the American people. It's unfair to the media.
And you asked her a question and she completely ignored it.
More than ignored it.
More than ignored it.
She blew me off, I think is the technical term.
I'm just going to talk.
When we saw the presidential debate, Jim Lear actually tried to push the candidates to discuss a little bit.
And talk to each other about it. We got 5 minutes. We can negotiate a deal right here.
We saw McCain completely refusing to engage with Obama, and there wasn't really much more he could do at that point.
Say it directly to him.
Well, John, 10 days ago, you said that the fundamentals of the economy are sound. And
you afraid I couldn't hear him?
I'm just determined to get you all to talk to each other. I'm going to try.
So why would the news media play ball and cover the debates to the extent they do? The answer lies, as it usually does in the world of television, in the ratings. They are huge. 57 million American viewers for the first Obama-McCain debate, 72 million for Palin and Biden. The debates run 90 minutes, and that's just the start of the show.
This is then followed by hours and hours and days of punditry.
Coming to you live from the spin room.
It all becomes one big, messy spin effort by the campaigns and their supporters.
How did Biden do? How did Palin do?
The pundits are almost always wrong about who they think win and lose debates.
And she knocked it out of the ballpark.
The voters thought that Biden won the debate by a pretty big margin.
This is the debate equivalent of sort of Sarah Palin's shock and awe.
I think the pundits were pretty much all wrong.
To summarize, a flawed format controlled by the politicians rather than the news media. Moderated by journalists who aren't allowed to ask follow-up questions, the kind that get answers. And expert analysts who often get the analysis wrong.
That concludes tonight's debate from here in Nashville.
Apart from that, what's not to like about the presidential and vice presidential debates?
Here's what our Global Village voices have seen in the coverage of the great debates.
There's an awful lot of emphasis placed upon the presidential debates every year. Everybody's always looking for some incident or escapade to report upon. It's kind of like road crash TV, if you will. You're always waiting for somebody to make a mistake, and it's these mistakes which people remember from the debates throughout the years, and not necessarily the points of political differences between the two candidates.
The presidential debates are extremely essential to us as voters. It's a unique opportunity for us as citizens. We, the people, those with the actual power to elect our next officials. These debates give us the opportunity to listen to their ideals and their vision for the country, and to respectfully discern that information for ourselves, not through media bias and punditry.
If you have a beef about the output of news media anywhere in the world, let us know about it. Email us at listeningpost@aljazeera.net, and we'll find a way via webcam or even camera phone to get your opinion on the air as one of our Global Village voices. Time now for Listening Post News Bites. The Pentagon says it will spend $300 million over the next 3 years on a propaganda program aimed at Iraqis. The money will go to 4 different companies who will be on the front lines of the information war, which the U.S. military considers crucial to its counterinsurgency offensive. The Americans have already spent hundreds of millions on their propaganda efforts there, but the Pentagon has been quite candid about its media failings in Iraq. The U.S. Defense Secretary Robert Gates has said more than once about al-Qaeda, quote, "We're being outcommunicated by a guy in a cave," unquote. The internet giant Skype has been busted by a researcher at the University of Toronto who discovered that anyone using Skype to communicate with or within China cannot be guaranteed anonymity. The privacy breaches involve what's called Skype, the Chinese version of the popular voice and text software. The researcher named Nart Villeneuve discovered that Skype collects, logs, and then places on easily accessible servers millions of user records that include personal information and contact details. That means China's internet police force can get at that information. Another big internet player, Yahoo, has already been heavily criticized for helping Chinese authorities capture dissidents. This time around, a spokesperson for eBay, which owns Skype, said the company has taken note of its security problem, but the researchers who work out of Toronto's Citizen Lab don't buy that. They say they'll keep an eye on the story. There's enough bad news in the U.S. stock market these days, even without rogue citizen journalists causing unnecessary panic amongst investors. The value of Apple shares plunged nearly 10% recently over false rumors that the computer, phone, and music giant's CEO, Steve Jobs, had suffered a heart attack.
I just wanted to mention this.
The rumor was published on CNN's iReport site, not by a CNN journalist, but rather by one of the site's users, who called himself John T.W. Apple did its best to deny the story, but not before shareholders started dumping stock. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission is now investigating whether this was a deliberate attempt to devalue the company's worth. A high-profile correspondent for an American TV network could be in trouble over the spoils of war.
Lara, I know you could see
CBS's chief foreign affairs correspondent, Lara Logan, who for some reason is based in Washington, was the subject of this recent short film by Broadcasting and Cable.
Caution, stay back 100 meters or you will be shot.
The film showed two paintings that Logan apparently took from damaged government buildings in Baghdad during the war. That contravenes an American law that was put in place in order to prevent the pillaging of Iraqi treasures. War reporters routinely abscond with souvenirs like the paintings in question. Logan, who has a good nose for a story and a keen eye for publicity, is exceptional only in the fact that she let cameras into her office and therefore got caught. YouTube, or rather its Russian equivalent, RuTube, has brought fame and misfortune to a disgruntled Russian soldier. In a slickly produced reworking of a hit song by the American rap star Eminem, the soldier Vitaly Efremov takes a run at the Russian military, complaining about the dreadful conditions in his St. Petersburg barracks. The song takes the form of a letter of complaint written to the country's defense minister. The video drew hundreds of comments, mostly in support of the soldier. The Russian military has taken action as a result, but not the kind that Mr. Efremov would have wanted. He's now rapping at a military base somewhere in Siberia. Back after the break with a story on Google, the internet startup that's grown into a media giant.